I just got this radio in for repair, so I thought I would use it to show you all the steps I take in repairing a radio. I take detailed pictures of the cabinet, note any flaws in the cabinet, and when I take the chassis out of the cabinet, I store the knobs and the screws in baggies, and then store the baggie in the cabinet, and then store the cabinet in a safe place. Here's the first look at this chassis. And you can see that nobody's been in it, which is getting to be a rarer thing here. I go ahead and test all the tubes, and this one, the audio output tube, could be a little better, but it's good. Then I pull up the wiring diagram because the next step is to check all the coils in the radio. And if all the coils are good, then I'll go ahead and replace all the wax capacitors and all the electrolytic capacitors. All the coils were good, so I've started replacing the wax capacitors, and I like to start with the toughest ones first. Here I'm in the midst of wiggling this large capacitor out from underneath all this wiring, and here's the ends of the capacitor, and I'll just attach the new capacitor to those ends. I do this because it's much less stress and much less likelihood that I'll break something like a tube socket doing it this way. While I'm replacing the wax capacitors, I'm also paying attention to the resistors, and here's one that caught my eye. Doesn't look real good, and I measured it, and it's about 2.5 times what it should be. And here's another one that doesn't look too bad, but does look like it got a little warm. That's a 22 ohm, and it now reads almost 80 ohms. So that definitely is going to get replaced. Here's that first wax capacitor that I wiggled out of the radio, and there's its replacement. And what I do is I just do these one at a time, and I just line them up, double checking the values as I go, and just simply replace each capacitor one at a time. When I'm completed with the wax capacitors, then I start on the electrolytic, and here, the way it's wired in, I'm actually going to use the existing wire and replace them with these new electrolytic capacitors. Now all the capacitors and resistors have been replaced, and here's the before and here's the after. Now it's time for the first turn up, and I always have a voltmeter across the electrolytics to make sure that I've got the right voltage, and also to make sure that I wired them in correctly. Okay, this is the setup for the first turn up, and I always put leads across the filter caps to make sure I put them in correctly, and also to measure the voltage here, but to make sure that it goes up in the right direction. And let's bring up the voltage slowly here. Okay. That bulb is lit just a little bit. I got the volume up about halfway. Okay. Don't have much voltage there yet, but it is going in the right direction. Oh, it's playing already.
Nearly 120,000 North Carolina jobs. Senator Hagan understands the importance of innovative biomedical research for patients, their families, and our state's economy. And Senator Hagan has been a strong supporter of policies that encourage innovation
too much
and lead
current.
to cures. Call Senator
Bring up the
Hagan
voltage
today
a little
at
bit more.
224-3121. Tell her thanks for protecting the promise of biomedical research and the nearly 120,000 North Carolina jobs it provides. Your voice can make a difference for patients and their families. So call now, because biomedical research is not just the future, it's life. Paid for by the Pharmaceutical Research and Manufacturing.
My next step is to play the radio for several hours, and after I'm satisfied that everything's ready to go, I go back to the documentation, read through the alignment procedure, do the alignment, and pretty much we're done with the radio, although I do play it for several hours after that to make sure that it's going to perform the way that it should.
Tuesday morning at 8.
Obviously, and I've done it.
Food is the biggest budget buster of all. When I
We
over at the Smith. Sure, Adam.
and no hagas this.
Have you here?
Thanks, Stephen. Good to be with you.
Question. No.
Over there, they actually, I don't know if it's too inside baseball, but Dave Glenn had to switch his location of where he was going to be.
Yes, and I don't even know where the location is.
I don't even know. It's like a secret location.